I was stirring a heavy Dutch oven, the kind that holds heat like a secret, when someone started pounding on the front door hard enough to rattle the glass. The house smelled of saffron rice, roasted garlic, and the caldo I had been cooking since dawn for Nora's citizenship dinner. 8 years of my hands in that kitchen, and that was the moment they chose. I wiped my fingers on my apron, already feeling something wrong crawl up my spine, and before I even reached the hallway, I heard my name. Loud, official, mispronounced. Elena Marquez. Not Mama, not Abuela. My full name like I was a file, not a person. I opened the door and saw 2 officers. Behind them, the neighbors pretending not to stare. One of them asked if I was Elena Marquez. I said yes. My voice didn't shake. Not yet. They told me there had been a report, that I needed to come with them. Just like that. No confusion. No hesitation. Like they already knew everything about me except who I really was. And in that second, before I even turned around, I understood something that made my stomach go cold. This wasn't random. Someone inside that house had called them. I looked past the officers. Gabriel was standing near the kitchen entrance, not rushing forward, not asking questions, just watching. Nora was behind him, arms folded tight, lips pressed like she was holding something in. The children were frozen, halfway between curiosity and fear. The table was already set. Plates, glasses, folded napkins I had ironed that morning. A celebration waiting to begin. For her. For the woman who had just secured everything. Except me. I need to turn off the stove, I said. One of the officers nodded. Make it quick. I walked back into the kitchen. The broth was still simmering, quiet, patient, like it didn't know what was happening. I turned the flame down slowly, like I was finishing a normal day. My hands moved automatically. 8 years of routine doesn't disappear just because your life is breaking. I looked at the counter, the knife I had used to chop cilantro, the ceramic bowl with sliced limes, the small tin where I kept spices, and beneath it, hidden deeper than anyone ever checked, something else. Papers, notes, proof. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Mom, Gabriel finally said from behind me, his voice low. I turned. I didn't answer him. I just looked, really looked, and I saw it. Not fear, not shock, relief. That was the moment something inside me stopped being soft. I'll get my coat, I said. No one offered to help. Not Nora. Not my son. The children didn't move either. Only Sophia, my oldest granddaughter, took one step forward like she wanted to say something, but Nora's hand touched her arm, and she froze. I put on my coat. It still smelled faintly of detergent and the lavender sachets I tucked into the closet. Small things. Quiet things. The kind you do when you believe you belong somewhere. I stepped outside. The air was colder than I expected. As they guided me toward the car, I heard a neighbor whisper. I heard a door close. I heard the life I had been living for 8 years continue behind me, like I had already been erased from it. I didn't cry. Not when they asked me questions. Not when they wrote things down. Not when they treated me like I had just appeared out of nowhere instead of raising children in that house, cooking every meal, washing every sheet, holding every fever. I answered everything clearly. But inside, something else had already started. I was remembering. Every hour, every promise, every lie. And for the first time in 8 years, I wasn't thinking about how to survive in that house. I was thinking about what they had just done to me, and what it was going to cost them. Hello, my dear ones. I wish I could say this kind of story is rare, But it isn't. A 73-year-old woman gives everything, and the moment she's no longer needed, they turn on her. Tell me, what would you feel in her place? They put me in the back seat like I might run, like my knees, stiff from years of standing over stoves and sinks, could carry me anywhere fast enough to matter. The door shut with a dull, final sound, and through the glass I saw Sophia break away from Nora's hand and step outside. She didn't wave. She didn't cry. She just looked straight at me, her face tight with something sharper than fear. She knew. The car started moving. The house disappeared from view faster than I expected. 8 years of my life reduced to a shrinking rectangle of light and brick in a side mirror. "Do you have identification?" one of the officers asked. "Yes," I said. "In my purse." My voice was steady. That surprised even me. I handed it over. He looked at it, then at me, then back at it again, like something didn't quite match what he expected. Maybe he thought I would look more dangerous, or more broken. "Someone reported that you're in the country illegally," he said, almost casually. "I know why you're here," I answered. He glanced at me, curious now. "You do?" "Yes." I turned my head toward the window, watching unfamiliar streets pass by, but in my mind, I was still standing in that kitchen. "I've lived in the same house for 8 years," I continued. "Raised 2 children, cooked every meal, took them to school, picked them up, stayed when they were sick, paid for groceries when they couldn't. And suddenly today, someone decides I shouldn't be there anymore." Neither officer said anything for a moment. "You think it was the family?" the driver asked finally. I didn't answer right away, because saying it out loud would make it real in a way I wasn't ready for yet. But the silence between us already had the answer sitting inside it. At the station, everything became colder. Not just the air, the way people spoke, the way they looked at me, the way my name was repeated like a case number instead of something a mother hears from her child. I was fingerprinted. Photographed. Asked the same questions in slightly different ways, as if one version of me might slip and reveal something the other didn't. "How long have you been in the country?" 8 years. "Who do you live with?" "My son." "Do you receive payment for work?" I paused there, not because I didn't know the answer, but because of how many different truths lived inside that question. "No," I said. The officer writing it down didn't even look up. "Do you perform domestic duties in the home?" "Yes." "Voluntarily?" Another pause. I thought of the early mornings, the late nights, the promises, the waiting, the way Nora would say, "just a little longer," every time I asked about fixing my papers, the way Gabriel avoided those conversations completely. "Yes," I said again. But this time, the word felt heavier. They left me alone in a small room after that. Just a metal chair, a table, and walls that made every second feel longer than it was. That's when the fear finally tried to come. Not loud, not dramatic. Quiet. What if they sent me away? What if I never saw Sophia again? What if everything I had done, every meal, every scraped knee I cleaned, every night I stayed awake, meant nothing outside those walls? I pressed my hands together to stop them from shaking. No. I forced myself to breathe slowly. Because something wasn't adding up. If Gabriel and Nora wanted me gone quietly, they could have told me to leave. They could have made it unbearable until I left on my own. But this, calling immigration on the exact day she became a citizen, that wasn't just getting rid of me. That was making sure I had nowhere to go. And that kind of move doesn't come from panic. It comes from planning. The door opened again. A different woman stepped in this time, not an officer, no uniform. Just a folder in her hands and eyes that actually looked at me, not through me. "Mrs. Marquez?" she said gently. "Yes." "My name is Marianne Bell. I'm a legal volunteer. Someone contacted us on your behalf." My chest tightened. "Who?" She flipped a page, then looked back at me. "A Sophia Marquez." For the first time since the door had opened at the house, something inside me shifted. Not relief, not yet, but something close to it. Because if Sophia had made that call, then I wasn't as alone as they thought. Marianne didn't rush me. That was the first thing I noticed. In a place where every question felt like it was trying to corner me, she sat down across from me like there was time, like I wasn't already halfway erased. "Sophia told us a little," she said, opening her folder. "But I want to hear it from you." I looked at her carefully. You learn, at my age, not to trust quickly, especially not after something like this. "What exactly did she say?" I asked. "That you've been living with your son and his wife for years," Marianne replied. "That you take care of the house, the children. That you were promised help with your immigration status, and that today, suddenly, someone reported you." I let out a slow breath. "She's observant," I said quietly. Marianne gave a small nod. She sounded concerned and very clear. Of course she did. Sophia always listened more than she spoke. Always noticed what others missed. That's why Nora never liked her asking too many questions. "I want you to understand something," Marianne continued. "At your age, with no criminal record, and given the circumstances, this isn't as simple as someone calling and you disappearing. There are protections, especially if there's exploitation involved." That word landed differently. Exploitation, not help, not family duty, something else. I leaned back slightly in the chair, feeling the cold metal through my coat. "For 8 years, I said slowly. I woke up before everyone. I cooked breakfast, packed lunches, took the children to school, cleaned, shopped, cooked again. Stayed up when they were sick. I didn't ask for money every day. I asked for something else." "Legal status," Marianne said. "Yes." "And what did they say?" "Always the same thing. Soon. Just wait. It's complicated. Papers take time." Marianne wrote something down. "Did they ever start the process?" "No." "Did they ever pay you?" Another pause. "Not really," I said. "Sometimes they covered small things, gave me cash for groceries, but not payment, not for the work I was doing." Marianne's pen stopped moving. "And you stayed because he was my son, because I believed him, because I thought family meant something. But I didn't say all that. I stayed because I thought it would lead somewhere," I answered instead. Marianne closed the folder halfway, studying me now. "Mrs. Marquez," she said gently, "what you're describing isn't just a difficult family situation." I met her eyes. "I know," I said. And I did. Not fully. Not yet. But enough. Because sitting there, in that small room, I started seeing my life from the outside for the first time. Not as sacrifice, not as patience, as something that had been taken carefully, gradually, quietly. "What happens now?" I asked. Marianne leaned forward slightly. "Right now, because of your age and your background, you're not being held long-term," she said. "We can request a temporary release while we review your case properly. But I need you to be very clear with me. Do you feel safe going back to that house?" The answer came faster than I expected. No. Not anger. Not fear. Just certainty. Marianne nodded once, like she had expected that. Then we won't send you back there, she said. Something in my chest loosened, just a little. Not relief, but space. We'll arrange a temporary place for you, she continued. And I want you to think carefully. Any documents, records, messages, anything that shows what your life has been like these past 8 years. Do you have anything like that? I thought of the kitchen, the spice tin, the notebook, the small, careful habit I had built without even admitting to myself why. Yes, I said. Marianne's eyes sharpened slightly. Good, she replied. Because if what you're telling me is accurate, then this isn't just about immigration anymore. I felt my fingers pressed together again, but this time not from fear, from focus. They thought, I said slowly, that calling you would make me disappear. Marianne didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because now I understood something they clearly hadn't. They had pulled me out of that house, out of their control. And once I was outside of it, I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I didn't sleep that night. The room Marianne arranged for me was small, quiet, and too clean. Like a place meant for people in transition, not people with lives that had just been torn open. A narrow bed, a wooden chair, a lamp that buzzed softly if you listened too closely. I lay there fully dressed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second from the moment they knocked on the door. But my mind kept returning to the same place, the kitchen, the spice tin, the notebook. By morning, Marianne was back, moving with the same calm precision. We don't have much time before they realize you're not coming back quietly, she said. If you have anything important in that house, we need to get it. I nodded. I know exactly where it is. She studied me for a second. Are you ready to go back there? No, but I wasn't going back as the same woman who left. Yes, I said. We didn't arrive at the front door. Marianne parked a little down the street. Less attention, she explained, and we don't give them time to prepare. The house looked the same. Of course it did. Houses don't show betrayal on the outside. The same curtains. The same potted plant I had been watering for years. The same window where I used to watch the children come home from school. But something had shifted. It wasn't mine anymore. Marianne walked beside me as we approached the door. I had my key. They hadn't thought to take it. Not yet. I opened it. The smell hit me first. My cooking. Still there, like I had just stepped out for a moment instead of being taken away. Voices came from the living room. Gabriel and Nora. Low, tense. They stopped when they saw me. For a second, no one moved. Nora recovered first. You shouldn't be here, she said, sharp, controlled. I didn't answer her. I stepped inside fully, Marianne just behind me. I'm here to collect my belongings, I said. Gabriel's eyes flicked to Marianne. Who is this? Legal support, she replied calmly. That word landed exactly where it needed to. I watched it change something in his face. Not guilt, calculation. You could have just called, he said, trying to soften his voice now. We didn't expect. No, I interrupted. You expected exactly what you planned. Silence, heavy, real. Nora crossed her arms. We didn't plan anything. This is unfortunate. Unfortunate. 8 years. Reduced to that word. I turned away from her. There was nothing there for me anymore. I walked straight into the kitchen. Everything was exactly where I had left it. The pot, now cold. The plates still stacked. The knife cleaned and drying. A life paused mid-motion. I moved to the counter, lifted the ceramic bowl, then the spice tin. My hands were steady. I opened it. Still there. Folded papers, receipts, notes, copies, small things, insignificant if you didn't know what you were looking at. But I did. And now, so did Marianne. I didn't take everything at once. I was careful, methodical. The notebook came next, tucked behind a row of old cookbooks no one but me ever touched. The one where I wrote everything, dates, hours, what I did, what was said, promises made, promises delayed, every day, for years. Mom? Gabriel's voice came again, closer now. I turned slowly. This doesn't have to become something ugly, he said. We can fix this. Fix. That word again. You had 8 years to fix it, I replied. His jaw tightened. Nora stepped forward. What exactly do you think you're going to do with whatever that is? I looked at her. For the first time, not as someone I had served, but as someone who had made a mistake. You'll find out, I said. And for the first time since I walked into that house, she didn't have anything to say. I gathered the last of my things, not clothes, not dishes, not anything that could be replaced, only what mattered. Proof. As I walked toward the door, I heard footsteps behind me. Sophia. She stood there, eyes bright, breathing fast like she had been waiting for this moment. I knew you'd come back, she said quietly. I reached out and touched her face, just for a second. Thank you, I told her, for not staying silent. Her eyes flicked toward her parents, then back to me. I'm not done, she said. Neither was I. I stepped outside again, but this time, I wasn't being taken. I was leaving, and I was taking everything they thought I didn't have with me. We didn't speak on the way back. Marianne drove, steady as always, but I could feel the shift in the air. What I carried in that small cloth bag on my lap was no longer just my past. It was something sharper now, something that could cut. When we reached the office, she didn't waste time. Let's go through everything, she said. We sat at a wide wooden table. I unfolded the papers slowly, one by one, like laying out pieces of a life no one else had ever bothered to examine closely. Grocery receipts with my handwriting on the back. Lists of expenses I covered when they said they were short that month. Pharmacy slips with the children's names. School pickup logs. And then the notebook. Marianne opened it carefully. Page after page. Dates. Hours. Tasks. Breakfast. 6:10 a.m. Packed lunches. School drop-off. Cleaning. Laundry. Dinner prep. Child sick. Awake until 2:40 a.m. Every day. No gaps. No drama. Just consistency. This, she said quietly, turning another page. This is extremely detailed. I wrote it because I was tired of forgetting, I replied. Tired of hearing that I didn't do much. She looked up at me. They told you that? Not directly, but enough. She nodded slowly and kept reading. Then came the envelopes. Inside, copies of messages. Not many. I wasn't careless, but enough to show a pattern. Nora promising, next month we'll start your papers. Gabriel saying, just don't push right now, it's not the right time. Small sentences, casual, but repeated. Too many times. Marianne leaned back slightly, exhaling. This isn't just neglect, she said. I didn't answer. I already knew. She tapped one of the receipts. You were covering household expenses? Yes. From where? Small savings. Cash I kept. Sometimes they gave me money for groceries, but not always enough. I filled the gaps. She pressed her lips together, thinking. And they claimed you weren't working? Yes. Another silence. Heavier now. Then she reached for her pen again, but this time her posture changed. More focused, more precise. Mrs. Marquez, she said, I need to be very clear with you. What you're describing and what you've documented goes beyond an immigration issue. I held her gaze. This is labor exploitation, potential financial abuse, possibly even fraud, depending on how they represented their household and expenses. The words didn't shock me. They settled, like something finally being named correctly. They thought, I said slowly, that because I'm old, because I'm family, because I don't have papers, none of this mattered. Marianne closed the notebook. They thought wrong. That was the moment I felt it fully. Not fear, not sadness. Control. For 8 years, everything I did was inside their walls, under their rules, under their timing. Every conversation about my future ended with later, soon, not now. But now everything was outside, documented, structured, real. They called immigration on me, I said, my voice steady, almost quiet. On the exact day she got what she wanted. Marianne nodded. Yes. And they thought that would be the end of it. She leaned forward slightly. They thought it would make you disappear, she said. I shook my head. No, I replied. I placed my hand over the notebook. This is where they made their mistake. Because now, for the first time in 8 years, everything they had done to me could be seen, measured, counted, and answered. This is the moment everything shifts, not shouting, not revenge, just quiet evidence laid out piece by piece. Tell me, if you were in Elena's place, would you stop here or go all the way? The next move came from them. Of course it did. People like Gabriel and Nora don't sit quietly when control starts slipping. They adjust. They reframe. They try to pull the story back into their hands. It was late afternoon when Marianne's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, then at me. It's your son, she said. I didn't react. Put it on speaker. She answered without greeting. This is Marianne Bell. Gabriel's voice came through, tight but controlled. Yes, hi. I'd like to speak to my mother. She's here, Marianne replied calmly. You can speak. A pause. Then softer, carefully measured. Mom, I think this has gotten out of hand. I almost smiled. Out of hand. 8 years of silence, and now suddenly things were too much. I don't think so, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. We didn't expect things to go this way, he continued. Nora was under a lot of stress. The citizenship process, the kids, everything. It built up. I said nothing. Because I wanted to hear how far he would go. We can fix this, he added quickly. We can talk. You can come back home, and we'll sort everything out properly this time. There it was. Home. Like nothing had changed. Like I was supposed to walk back into that kitchen, pick up the same knife, and continue where I left off. Properly? I repeated. Yes, he said. Relieved, I responded. We'll start your papers. I promise. No more delays. I looked at Marianne. She didn't move, didn't interrupt, just watched me. 8 years, I said slowly. You had 8 years to start. His tone sharpened just slightly. It's not that simple, you know that. No, I replied. It is exactly that simple. You just chose not to. Silence again, then a shift, a different approach. Mom, he said, lowering his voice, you have to understand something. If you go down this path, it's going to hurt everyone, the kids, our family. It's not worth it. There it was. Not apology, not responsibility, consequence. But not for what they did. For what I might do. I already gave you everything, I said. You're talking about damage now? That already happened. His breathing changed, slightly faster. You're being influenced, he said. Whoever is advising you. Careful, Marianne said quietly. He stopped, then tried again, smoother this time. We just don't want this to become something bigger than it needs to be. Too late. It already is, I answered. Another long silence. Then, finally, the crack. What do you want? He asked. Not, how do we fix this? Not, what do you need? What do you want? I leaned back in my chair. For a moment, I thought about answering quickly, but I didn't. Because this was the first honest question he had asked me in years, and it deserved a real answer. I want, I said slowly, everything that was promised to me, everything that was taken from me, and I want it documented, properly. No emotion, no raised voice, just clarity. Gabriel didn't respond right away. Because now, for the first time, he understood the position he was in. You're serious, he said finally. Yes. And if we don't agree? I didn't hesitate. Then we continue. That word landed heavy. Continue meant process, evidence, exposure. Things he could no longer control. The silence that followed was different. Not hesitation. Calculation. All right, he said at last. Then let's handle this like adults. I almost laughed, but I didn't. Send everything through, Marianne, I replied. Not me. Another pause. Then colder now. Fine. The call ended, just like that. No goodbye. No mom. I sat there for a moment, looking at nothing. Then I reached for the notebook again, ran my fingers over the cover. 8 years, reduced to pages. But now, those pages were enough. Marianne leaned forward slightly. He's going to try to settle. I know. And Nora? I met her eyes. She won't, I said. Because Nora didn't see this as a mistake. She saw it as something that should have worked. And people like that don't back down easily. But neither did I. Not anymore. For the first time since this started, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. And whatever came next. It wasn't going to happen on their terms. The house didn't stay quiet after that call. Pressure does something to people. It reveals where the cracks already were. Sophia started coming to see me every day after school. Not openly at first. She would text Marianne, never her parents, and walk the extra blocks to the bakery where I stayed upstairs. The first time she came in, she didn't sit right away. She just looked around. The shelves, the smell of cardamom and fresh bread, the narrow stairs. This is better, she said finally. Better than what? I asked. She looked at me, and there was no hesitation in her voice. Better than that house. That told me everything I needed to know. We sat together at a small table near the window. I poured her tea, mint with a little honey, the way she liked since she was small. They're fighting, she said. I didn't react. How bad? I asked. She let out a breath. Not loud, not all the time, but constant. Like everything is tense. Mom keeps saying this will go away. Dad keeps saying we need to handle it carefully. Carefully. Yes, I was sure he wanted that. And you? I asked. I'm not pretending, she said. Of course she wasn't. Sophia had always been the one who noticed who actually did the work, who stayed, who showed up. What about Ethan? I asked. She hesitated. He doesn't get it, she said. Or he doesn't want to. That hurt more than I expected. Ethan, who used to fall asleep on the couch while I folded laundry. Ethan, who needed his shirts ironed just a certain way before school presentations. Ethan, who once cried because I burned a batch of buñuelos and thought it meant something was wrong with me. He thinks you're overreacting, Sophia added carefully. I nodded. That's easier, I said. For him, she replied. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she reached into her backpack. I brought something, she said. She pulled out her phone. I didn't mean to record it, she explained quickly. It just happened. My eyes stayed on her. What is it? She unlocked the screen, scrolled, then placed the phone on the table between us. It's from that night, she said. The night, the door, the officers, my name being called like it didn't belong to me. I was in the hallway, she continued. Before they took you, I heard them talking. My fingers stilled. Who? I asked. Mom and Dad. The air shifted, not dramatically, quietly, like something about to settle into place. Play it, I said. She pressed it. At first, just movement, distant sounds, the kind you don't pay attention to unless you're looking for them. Then voices. Nora's first. Sharp. Controlled. But underneath it, something else. We couldn't keep doing this. She was never going to leave on her own. Gabriel, lower. You didn't have to do it today. When else? Nora snapped. This was the cleanest moment. Paper's done. Everything secure. What did you want? Another year of this? A pause. Then his voice again. Tighter. She's my mother. And she's been dead weight for years, Nora said, flat. We solved it. One call. That's it. Silence. Then footsteps. The recording ended. Sophia didn't look at me. She didn't have to. Because everything that needed to be said had already been said. I reached out and turned the phone face down on the table. For a moment, I just sat there, not crying, not shaking, just still. Because now there was no space left for doubt, no room for explanation, no version of the story where this was misunderstanding, stress, or bad timing. This was a decision, planned, timed, executed. You understand what this is? I asked quietly. Sophia nodded. Yes. And you still brought it to me. Another nod. I'm not scared of them, she said. I studied her face. So young. And already seeing things clearly. That will make your life harder, I told her. I know. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was solid. Built on something real. I picked up the phone and handed it back to her. Keep a copy, I said, and send one to Marianne. I already did, she replied. Of course she had. I leaned back slightly, exhaling, because now, it wasn't just my word, it wasn't just my records, it was theirs, their voices, their choice. And once something like that exists, it doesn't disappear. It moves forward. Just like I was going to. Living above the bakery changed something in me faster than I expected. Not because it was comfortable. It wasn't. The bed was narrow, the ceiling low, and every morning started early whether I wanted it or not. But the difference was simple. Everything there was honest. When I helped Anahid in the kitchen, it was clear. A few hours. Small tasks. Legal. Paid properly. No pretending. No, we'll fix it later. If I chopped herbs, I was paid for chopping herbs. If I folded pastry boxes, it was counted, documented, real. The smell of fresh bread filled the space every morning. Challah, lavash, sometimes sweet rolls with apricot jam. It clung to my clothes, my hair, my hands. And for the first time in years, that smell didn't belong to someone else's house. It belonged to where I chose to be. You move like someone who's worked a kitchen her whole life, Anahid said one morning, watching me portion dough. I have, I replied. She nodded, like that explained everything. She didn't ask more. That's another kind of respect, knowing when not to ask. But outside that small, steady world, things were tightening. Marianne had started building the case properly now. Not just reviewing what I brought, but expanding it. Requests, documents, financial traces. Quiet conversations with people who had seen more than Gabriel and Nora realized. They didn't isolate you as well as they thought, she told me one afternoon. What do you mean? I asked. She slid a paper across the table. A list. Names, a school administrator, a pediatric nurse, a neighbor, a crossing guard. All of these people, she said, interacted with you regularly. Not Nora, not Gabriel, you. I looked at the names. I remembered each one. Small conversations, routine moments, nothing dramatic, but consistent. They remember you, Marianne continued, and that matters. Of course it did. Because the truth about a life like mine wasn't in one big moment. It was in repetition, every day, over and over. And there's something else, she added. I looked up. Financial movement, she said. We're starting to see patterns. My chest tightened slightly. What kind of patterns? She tapped another document. Shared accounts, transfers, small amounts over time. It looks like money was moved through accounts connected to you, but not controlled by you. I frowned. I didn't have access to their accounts. You didn't need to, she said. That's the point. I sat back slowly, because now I understood. They hadn't just used my work. They had used my name, quietly, carefully, the kind of thing no one notices if no one is looking. And if this holds, Marianne said, it changes everything. This isn't just about unpaid labor anymore. I exhaled slowly. Of course it wasn't. It never was. They just thought it would stay invisible. Later that evening, Sophia came again, but this time, she wasn't alone. Ethan stood a few steps behind her, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight like he didn't want to be there, but couldn't stay away either. I looked at him. He didn't meet my eyes at first. Then, slowly, he did. Hi, he said. Just that. Like nothing had happened. Like everything had happened. Hello, Ethan, I replied. Silence stretched between us. Sophia didn't interrupt. She knew this wasn't her moment. I didn't know, he said finally. His voice was low. Defensive, but not fully. I didn't know it was like that. I studied him. You didn't ask? I said. He flinched slightly. I thought you just wanted to help, he said. That you liked being there. I nodded. I did like being there, I said. Because you were there. That landed. I saw it in his face. But liking something, I continued, doesn't mean it's right. He swallowed. I heard the recording, he said. Of course he had. Sophia didn't keep things hidden. And? I asked. He hesitated. Then quietly. It didn't sound like what they're saying now. No, it didn't. Because truth, when it's not prepared for an audience, sounds different. We stood there, the three of us, in that small space that smelled like bread and something new. Not comfort, not resolution, but something closer to honesty than we had ever had in that house. I don't know what to do, Ethan admitted. I stepped a little closer. You don't have to decide everything right now, I told him. But you do have to decide what you're willing to see. He nodded slowly. Not agreement. Not yet. But movement. And that was enough. Because things were shifting. Not loudly. not all at once, but piece by piece, just like everything else in this story. The recording didn't stay quiet for long. Marianne moved carefully, but once something like that exists, it changes the pace of everything. What was slow became urgent. What was private started pressing outward. "They're going to feel this soon," she told me. "They already are," I replied. And I was right. 2 days later, Nora's voice showed up where she never expected it to. Not publicly, not yet, but in the places that mattered first. The school. The counselor had called Sophia in after noticing the tension, the sudden drop in focus, the way Ethan had started reacting to small things like they were too big. Routine check. Standard procedure. Until Sophia mentioned the situation, until the recording was quietly acknowledged. Until the counselor realized this wasn't just family stress. That's how it starts. Not with noise, with attention. At the same time, Marianne's request began reaching places Gabriel and Nora couldn't control. Financial records, employment declarations, household expense claims, the kind of paperwork no one worries about until someone reads it closely. "They built a clean story," Marianne said, reviewing another document, "but they didn't expect anyone to test it." And then it cracked. Sophia came in that evening faster than usual, her breath slightly uneven. "They know," she said. I didn't need to ask what she meant. "How?" I said calmly. "Dad got a call," she replied. "Not from you, not from Marianne, from someone asking questions about household expenses, about who actually lived there, who worked." I nodded. That would do it. "And Mom?" I asked. Sophia let out a short breath. "She's different," she said. "Not yelling, not even arguing. Just cold. Like she's trying to control everything at once." "Yes," that sounded like Nora. "And they're fighting again," Sophia added. "But this time it's not quiet." That was new. Because control breaking is never quiet for long. Later that same night, Ethan showed up alone. No message, no warning, just a knock at the bakery door. Anahid glanced at me. I nodded, and she went back to her work without a word. He stepped inside slowly. "I heard them," he said immediately. I waited. They were arguing about deleting things. Messages, accounts. Dad said it was too late. Mom said it wasn't. My expression didn't change. Because this was exactly what happens when people realize the ground is no longer stable. "They're scared," he added. That word stayed in the air for a moment. Scared. I looked at him. "Good," I said. He blinked, surprised. "I didn't think you'd say that." "Why not?" He hesitated. "I don't know. You." I almost smiled. "You think I don't understand consequences?" I asked. He didn't answer. Because now he was starting to see something he hadn't before. I wasn't just the person who made his food and folded his clothes. I was someone who could decide what happens next. "They made a decision," I continued. "Now they're living inside it." He nodded slowly. "I think Dad didn't expect it to go this far," he said. "No," I replied. "He expected it to end quickly." Ethan looked down at his hands. "And Mom?" I held his gaze. "She expected it to work." Silence. Heavy. Clear. Because there's a difference between someone who follows a bad decision and someone who creates it. Ethan swallowed. "I don't think I know them," he said quietly. That was the first honest thing he had said since this started. "You're starting to," I replied. He looked up at me again. "What happens now?" I leaned back slightly. Because now, we were no longer in the middle. We were approaching something else. "Now," I said, they start losing control of the story. And once that happens, everything they built on it starts to come apart. You can feel it now, can't you? The moment when the truth stops hiding and starts moving on its own. If you were Elena, would you slow down here or push even harder? Once things start breaking, they don't break in one place. They spread. Gabriel felt it first at work. Not officially, not yet. But in the way conversations changed, in the way his manager started asking questions that sounded casual but weren't, in the way someone from HR suddenly needed clarification about household dependence tied to certain financial declarations. Marianne showed me the note. "They're not accusing him yet," she said, "but they're looking." That's how it begins. Not with punishment, with attention. And attention, when it lands in the right place, is enough. Nora, on the other hand, reacted differently. She didn't slow down. She tightened. "She's trying to control the narrative," Sophia told me. "She's calling people, explaining things before anyone asks." "What is she saying?" I asked. "That you're confused," Sophia replied. "That you've been unstable for a while. That you misunderstood everything." I nodded. Of course she was. "When facts are dangerous, people switch to perception. She even said you refused help," Sophia added, "that they tried to support you, but you didn't cooperate." That almost impressed me. The confidence, the precision. But lies like that require consistency. And Nora didn't have it anymore. Because now, there were too many versions of the story. At the same time, Marianne was moving faster. The recording had been submitted. Not loudly, not publicly, but in exactly the right place. "They can't ignore it," she said. "And they can't explain it," I added. She gave a small nod. "Yes." We sat across from each other, documents spread between us like pieces of something already decided, just waiting to be recognized. "There's something else," she said after a moment. I looked up. "The financial trail is stronger than we thought," she continued. "There are patterns that suggest they may have benefited from reporting household structures that don't match reality." I leaned back slightly. "How much?" She didn't answer immediately. "Enough," she said finally. "Enough." That word again, not exact, but dangerous. Because enough means you don't need more. Later that day, Gabriel came in person. Not to the bakery, not to Marianne's office, to my door. Anahid opened it first, looked at him once, then called my name without asking anything. He stepped inside like he didn't belong there. Because he didn't. His eyes moved quickly. Small space, simple furniture, the smell of baking still in the air. "This is where you're staying?" he asked. "Yes." A pause. Then he tried to soften his voice again. "You don't have to live like this." I almost smiled. "I don't have to live the way I was living either," I replied. That landed. He shifted his weight slightly. "I came to talk," he said, "without all of this." "There is no without this anymore," I said. His jaw tightened. "I'm trying to fix things." "No," I replied calmly. "You're trying to limit damage." Silence. Sharp. Accurate. He stepped closer. "You don't understand how far this can go," he said, lower now. "There are consequences to pushing this." I met his eyes. "I understand that better than you do." Another pause. Longer. Because now he was starting to realize something he hadn't before. He couldn't move me with fear anymore. "What do you want?" he asked again. Same question. Different tone. This time, there was less control in it. "Everything documented," I said. "Everything acknowledged. and everything corrected. That's not realistic, he snapped before he could stop himself. There it was. The truth. Not the words. The reaction. I tilted my head slightly. No, I said. It's just not convenient. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. You're going to destroy everything, he said. I didn't raise my voice, didn't lean forward, didn't change my tone. You already did, I replied. That was the moment he lost whatever balance he had left. Not loudly, not dramatically, but internally. I saw it in the way his shoulders dropped just slightly, in the way he stopped trying to shape the conversation. You're serious, he said again. Yes. And you're not coming back. It wasn't a question. No. Silence filled the space between us. But this time, it didn't belong to him. It belonged to me. Because for the first time in his life, he was standing in front of me without control, without leverage, without a way to reset things back to how they were. And he didn't know what to do with that. I didn't think you'd go this far, he said quietly. I looked at him, really looked, and for a moment I saw the boy he used to be. Then it passed. You didn't think I had a choice, I said. That was the difference. He turned toward the door slowly, paused, but didn't look back. Then we'll see how this ends, he said. I didn't answer, because I already knew something he didn't. This wasn't ending. Not yet. This was just the part where everything becomes visible. And once that happens, there's no going back to silence. After Gabriel left, the air didn't settle. It sharpened. Because now there was no pretending left. No middle space. No version of the story where this could quietly dissolve into family misunderstanding. Everything had moved too far. And once things move that far, they don't come back smaller. Marianne called me early the next morning. We need to prepare, she said. For what? I asked. For formal proceedings, she replied. They've responded. That was fast. Too fast for comfort. What did they say? She paused for a second. They're denying everything. Of course they were. Everything? I asked. Yes, she said. According to them, you were never working. You were staying temporarily, helping occasionally, by choice. I closed my eyes for a moment. Not out of pain, out of recognition. This was the version they were committing to. Do they mention the recording? I asked. Another pause. They're questioning its context, Marianne said, saying it was taken out of situation, misinterpreted. I almost nodded. Predictable, because when facts are clear, you attack the frame. Good, I said. Marianne didn't respond immediately. You expected that? She asked. Yes. Because denial like that locks people into a position, and once they're locked in, they can't adjust without breaking themselves. Then we move forward, she said. Exactly. Later that day, we sat down again with everything laid out in front of us. But this time, it felt different. Before, we were building. Now, we were preparing to present. They're going to try to discredit you, Marianne said. Your memory, your consistency, your intentions. They already are, I replied. Yes, she said. But now it will be formal, structured, on record. I nodded. I understand. She looked at me carefully. Do you? I met her gaze. 8 years, I said. You don't survive that without learning how to stay consistent. That was the truth. Because what they didn't understand was that I had already been living inside pressure. Quiet pressure. Daily. For years. This was just louder. Then we go step by step, Marianne said. No emotion, no reaction, just facts. Yes. She slid the notebook toward me. Start from the beginning, she said. And I did. Not dramatically, not like a story, like a record. Dates, times, actions, patterns, every morning, every night, every interruption, every promise. I didn't rush, didn't skip, didn't guess. Because the strength of something like this is not in how loud it is, it's in how precise. At some point, Marianne stopped writing. She just listened. Fully. Carefully. Because now she understood something deeper. This wasn't just evidence. This was structure. A life that had been reduced to service. Now reconstructed into proof. By the time I finished, the room was quiet, not empty, full. This is going to be very difficult for them to dismantle, she said finally. I know. And if they try? They will, I replied. She nodded. Yes, they will. That afternoon, something else happened. Not through Marianne, not through official channels. Through Nora. She didn't call. She didn't send a message. She came herself. To the bakery. Anahid looked at her the same way she had looked at Gabriel. Once. Enough. Then she called me. Nora stepped inside like she still owned space she had never earned. Her posture was perfect. Her expression controlled. But her eyes were different now. Not calm. Focused. Sharp. I think we should talk, she said. I didn't invite her to sit. You can speak, I replied. She glanced around briefly, taking in the room, me, the simplicity of it. This has gone further than necessary, she said. No, I answered. It's gone exactly as far as it needed to. A flicker. Small, but there. You're being advised poorly, she said. I almost smiled. You're repeating yourself, I replied. That irritated her, not openly, but enough. You don't understand the consequences of what you're doing, she said, her tone tightening just slightly. I held her gaze. No, I said. You don't understand the consequences of what you did. That landed. Harder than anything else. Because Nora didn't respond immediately. And Nora always responded. You're not thinking clearly, she said finally. I am, I replied. For the first time in 8 years. Silence. Then she stepped closer, lowered her voice. You could still walk away from this, she said. Quietly. With support. Support. I let that word sit between us, then I answered. I did walk away, I said. And that was the difference. She wasn't offering me something. She was trying to pull me back. But that door was already closed. For good. She studied me for a long second. Then something in her expression changed. Not defeat. Not fear. Recognition. That this was no longer something she could control. This won't end the way you think, she said quietly. I didn't move. It already isn't ending the way you thought, I replied. That was the last thing said. She turned, walked out. No goodbye, no attempt to recover the moment, because she understood now. The same thing Gabriel had started to understand. This wasn't a situation anymore. It was a process. And processes like this don't stop just because someone wants them to. I stood there for a moment after she left. Then I went back to the table, opened the notebook again, and continued. Because we weren't at the end. Not even close. But we were past the point where anything could be hidden. And from here on, everything would be seen exactly as it was. After Nora left, something shifted again. Not outside, inside. Because until that moment, a part of me, small, quiet, stubborn, had still been waiting for something different. Not an apology. not even regret. Just acknowledgement. But there was none. Not from her. Not from Gabriel. And once you understand that fully, you stop expecting anything from them, and that changes how you move. The next few days became structured, not emotional, not reactive, precise. Marianne scheduled everything carefully, every statement, every submission, every response. There was no rushing now, no improvising, just steady progression. "They're starting to contradict themselves," she told me one afternoon. "How?" I asked. She turned her screen toward me. 2 statements, same people, different versions. In one, you were temporarily staying. In another, you were a long-term dependent family member, she said. "Those 2 things don't align?" No, they didn't. "And once that starts," she continued, "it spreads, because now every answer has to match every previous answer." I nodded slowly. "And they won't be able to keep that consistent." Exactly. Because lies are not built for repetition. Truth is. Later that day, Sophia came again, but this time, she didn't sit right away. "I'm leaving," she said. I looked at her. "Leaving where?" "I applied for a student housing program," she said. "Temporary, just to get out." That was fast. Too fast for most people, but not for her. "They know?" I asked. She nodded. "They're pretending it's about independence," she said. "But they know why." Of course they did. "And you?" I asked. She stepped closer. "I'm not staying in that house," she said. "Not after everything." I studied her face. No hesitation, no doubt, just clarity. "You understand what that means?" I asked quietly. "Yes. It won't be easy." "I know. And they will try to pull you back." She gave a small, almost sharp smile. "They already tried." That didn't surprise me. What did they say? That I'm being influenced, that I don't understand the situation, that I'm choosing sides. I nodded. "Yes, that sounds right." Sophia stepped even closer now. "I'm not choosing sides," she said. "I'm choosing what's real." That stayed with me, because at her age, that's not a simple choice. "Good," I said. We stood there for a moment. Then she exhaled. "There's something else," she added. I waited. "Dad came into my room last night," she said. Not angry, not loud, just quiet. That was new. "What did he say?" I asked. Sophia looked down briefly. "He asked me if I hated him." The question lingered in the air, heavy, complicated. "And what did you answer?" I asked. She looked back at me. I said I didn't know who he was right now. Silence. Because sometimes, that's worse than anger. That's distance. And distance is harder to fix. "He didn't argue," she added. "He just stood there. Then he left." I nodded slowly. Because Gabriel was starting to feel something he had avoided for a long time. Loss. Not of control, of connection. And that kind of loss doesn't respond to negotiation. Later that evening, Ethan came again, but this time something in him was different. Not confusion, not hesitation, something heavier. "They're asking me to speak," he said. I didn't react immediately. "Speak where?" "In all of this," he replied. "To support them." "Of course. They want you to confirm their version," I said. He nodded. "Yes." "And will you?" He didn't answer right away, because now, this was his decision, not theirs. "I don't know," he said finally. Honest, but not enough. I stepped closer. "You do know," I said quietly. "You just haven't said it out loud yet." He looked at me, struggling, because this wasn't about information anymore. It was about direction. "If you speak," I continued, "you need to be able to stand inside what you say. Not just today, later. That landed. Because truth doesn't end when the conversation ends. It stays. He swallowed. They're my parents, he said. Yes. And you're... He stopped, didn't finish, because he didn't know what word to use anymore. Not just grandmother, not just someone who lived in the house. Something else. Something he was only now beginning to understand. I'm the one who was there, I said. That was enough. Silence followed. Long, heavy, real. I need time, he said. I nodded. Take it. Because this decision would define more than just this moment. It would define who he becomes after it. And that couldn't be rushed. He left quietly. No promises, no conclusions. Just movement. And as the door closed behind him, I understood something clearly. The case wasn't just building outside anymore, it was building inside that family, breaking it, reshaping it, forcing each of them to decide who they were going to be when everything was exposed. And soon, that decision would no longer be private. The room was colder than I expected, not physically, structured, ordered. The kind of place where everything is meant to stay controlled. Voices, posture, time. A long table, neutral walls, documents aligned in careful stacks. No raised tones, no interruptions. But underneath all of that, pressure. Marianne sat beside me, calm as always, her hands resting lightly on the table. Across from us, Gabriel and Nora. Not next to each other, not quite apart. That told me everything. They weren't a unit anymore. They were two people sitting on the same side, trying not to fracture in front of others. Ethan was there too, slightly behind them, not fully with them, not fully away. Sophia wasn't in the room. That was her choice, and I respected it. This is a formal review of submitted claims and responses, someone at the head of the table said. Measured voice, neutral tone. We will proceed with statements and documentation. No drama, no emotion, exactly where truth becomes visible. Marianne gave me a small nod. I understood. This was my moment, not to defend, to present. I opened the notebook, placed it in front of me, and began. Not fast, not slow, exact. June 12th, 6:10 a.m. Breakfast prepared, school lunches packed, drop-off completed, cleaning. Laundry, dinner preparation. No one interrupted, because this wasn't a story. It was structure. Day after day, page after page. 8 years. Condensed into something no one could dismiss without confronting it directly. At some point, I didn't look up anymore. I didn't need to. Because I wasn't speaking to them. I was placing something on record. Then Marianne spoke. Clear. Controlled. She introduced the financial patterns, the inconsistencies, the documented movement of money, the claims that didn't match behavior, the details that didn't align with the version Gabriel and Nora had submitted. No accusations, just facts. Then, the recording. It wasn't announced dramatically. It was simply played. Nora's voice filled the room, sharp, precise, unfiltered. She was never going to leave on her own. This was the cleanest moment. We solved it. One call. No one moved. No one spoke. Because there are moments when explanation becomes impossible, and this was one of them. I looked up then, for the first time since I started speaking. Gabriel wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the table. Still. Tight. Nora. She was holding her posture, but her control wasn't complete anymore. I saw it in her eyes. The first crack. Small, but real. This recording has been submitted as part of the evidence, Marianne said calmly. Alongside documented logs, financial records, and third-party confirmations. Silence followed. Then the question came, directed at them. Do you dispute the authenticity of this material? A pause. Not long, but long enough. Gabriel shifted slightly, opened his mouth, closed it. Nora answered. We dispute the interpretation, she said. Of course. Always the frame. Please clarify, came the response. Another pause. Then, it's being presented without full context, she said. Emotional stress, miscommunication. It does not reflect the full reality of the situation. There it was. Control. Reconstructed. But weaker now. Because once something like that is heard, you can't fully reshape it. Marianne didn't argue. She didn't need to. She simply placed another document forward. Then let's continue with the full context, she said. And we did. Witness references, school records, medical logs, daily involvement, names, dates, consistency, piece by piece, the version they built, started losing structure, not collapsing all at once, but failing to hold. Ethan shifted again, this time more visibly, because now he wasn't just hearing things, he was seeing them arranged, clearly, undeniably, and that changes everything. The room stayed controlled, but the balance inside it was no longer equal. I closed the notebook when it was done, not with force, just finished, because there was nothing left to add. Everything that needed to exist was now there, in front of everyone, unavoidable. And in that silence, something settled. Not victory, not yet, but direction. Because from this point forward, there was no version of this story where they were in control of how it looked. That part was over. This is the moment most people never reach. The truth, laid out with nowhere to hide. No shouting, no chaos, just reality. Tell me, what would you do sitting in that room in Elena's place? The decision didn't come all at once. That's not how these things work. No one stood up and said, "This is over." No one raised their voice. No one declared anything dramatic. Instead, it unfolded. Quietly. Formally. Piece by piece. Additional reviews were scheduled. Follow-ups requested. Clarifications demanded, not from me, but from them. Their statements were examined against their own records. Their timelines were compared against mine. And slowly, the structure they had built started giving way. They're adjusting their position, Marianne told me 2 days later. How? I asked. They're no longer denying everything, she said. Now they're reframing. I nodded. Of course they were, because full denial only works until it doesn't. And what's the new version? I asked. That you were informally contributing to the household over a long period, she replied. That there were misunderstandings about compensation and status. Misunderstandings, 8 years, reduced again. But this time, it didn't land the same way, because now the facts were already in place. You can't reframe structure, I said. Marianne gave a small nod. No, but they'll try to soften impact. Later that week, the terms began to take shape. Not conversations, documents, conditions, acknowledgments. They're offering settlement, Marianne said. I looked at her. Details? She slid the papers toward me. Compensation, formal recognition of long-term unpaid labor, legal protection for my status, restrictions, commitments, everything written, everything structured, everything they had avoided for 8 years, now required in full. They're trying to contain it, she said. I know. Do you want to proceed? I didn't answer immediately, because this wasn't about winning. Not in the way people think. This was about something else. Finality. clarity, truth placed where it couldn't be denied again. "What happens if I refuse?" I asked. "It continues," Marianne said. "Longer, more exposure, more pressure, but also more cost, more time." I nodded slowly. Then I looked back at the papers, at the numbers, at the language, at the acknowledgement, carefully written, legally controlled, but still there. For the first time, they were being forced to name what they had done, not emotionally, not personally, but officially. And sometimes, that matters more. "Proceed," I said. Marianne watched me for a second, then nodded. "All right." The next meeting was shorter, different, less tension. Not because things were resolved, but because direction had already been decided. Gabriel looked smaller, not physically, internally, like something had been taken from him that he didn't know how to recover. Nora, still composed, still controlled, but no longer untouched, because now she wasn't managing a situation. She was contained by it. Documents were reviewed, terms confirmed, adjustments made, precise, clinical, final. No one spoke unnecessarily. No one tried to reshape anything anymore. Because that phase was over. At one point, Gabriel looked at me. Not long, just a moment. And in that moment, there was something I hadn't seen before. Not control, not calculation, not even defense. Regret. But it came too late. Because regret doesn't undo structure. And structure was already in place. When it was finished, there was no announcement, just signatures. Pages turned, folders closed. "That concludes this matter," someone said. And that was it. 8 years. Closed in a sentence. I stood up slowly, not rushed, not emotional, just complete. Outside, the air felt different, not lighter, clearer. Marianne walked beside me. "You handled that exactly right," she said. I didn't respond right away. Because I wasn't thinking about how I handled it. I was thinking about something else. "I'm not going back," I said finally. She glanced at me. "I didn't think you would." I nodded. Because that house was never mine. Not really. And now, it never would be. We reached the car. I paused for a moment before getting in, not to look back, but to feel it. The end of something. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just done. And for the first time in a long time, there was nothing pulling me backward anymore, only forward. Months passed, not quickly, not slowly, just steadily. The kind of time that doesn't rush you, but doesn't wait either. I moved into a small apartment not far from the bakery. Nothing fancy. A secondhand table, 2 chairs, a ceramic tureen I found in a thrift shop, slightly chipped, but solid. 2 plants by the window that needed more light than they got, but survived anyway. It was enough. More than enough. Because for the first time in years, everything in that space belonged to me. Not because someone allowed it, because I chose it. I still worked with Anahid some mornings, not long hours. Just enough. Enough to stay active. Enough to feel useful in a way that was clear, honest, and mine. The smell of bread followed me home now, and I liked that. Sophia visited often, not every day, but regularly, freely. No tension in her shoulders. No checking her phone every few minutes. No listening for footsteps in another room. She spoke differently, too. More direct. More certain. Like someone who had stepped out of something and could finally hear herself think. Ethan came less often, but when he did, he stayed longer. He didn't talk as much, but when he did speak, it mattered. I said no, he told me one evening, sitting at the table across from me. To what? I asked. To speaking for them, he said. I nodded. He looked down at his hands. They weren't angry, he added. Not like before. That told me everything. What were they? I asked. He thought for a moment. Tired, he said. Yes, that's what happens when control runs out. It doesn't explode. It drains. And you? I asked. He looked up at me. I'm still figuring that out. I gave a small nod. That's all right. Because he wasn't the same boy anymore, and he knew it. As for Gabriel and Nora, they stayed where they were, in that house, in that life. But something about it had changed, not visibly, not to people passing by, but internally. Structure had shifted. Control had limits now, and limits change behavior. Gabriel came once. Just once. He stood outside my door longer than he needed to. I saw him through the window before I opened it. He looked older, not by years, by weight. I opened the door. He didn't step in. Hi, he said. Hello? Silence. Then, I didn't think it would end like this, he said. I studied him for a moment. It didn't, I replied. That caught him. What do you mean? I held his gaze. This isn't the end, I said. This is what came after. He didn't answer, because he understood. At least, partly. I made mistakes, he said. That word again. Mistakes. I didn't correct him, not out loud. Because some people only understand the full weight of what they've done over time, not in a single moment. I know, I said. He looked at me, waiting for something. Forgiveness. Maybe. Closure. But I didn't give it. Not because I was angry, because I was clear. You can't come in, I added. Quiet. Final. He nodded slowly, like he expected it, like part of him already knew. I understand, he said. And for the first time, it sounded real. He turned, walked away. Not quickly, not dramatically, just gone. I closed the door, not hard, not soft, just closed. Then I went back to the table, sat down, looked at the space around me, the quiet, the simplicity, the absence of pressure. And I understood something fully. For 8 years, I had lived inside something that took from me without ever naming it. And when it finally ended, it didn't leave me empty. It left me free. I'll be honest with you. Not everyone would have done what Elena did. Some would forgive. Some would go back. And maybe that would be easier. But tell me, was she right to close that door? Or did she lose something she can never get back? If this story made you feel something, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.